Okay, V Rising version 1.0 Brutal Mode. So I thought I might start with a quick preview of where this video is going because it's going to be a long one, and I figured let you choose whether you actually want to watch the whole thing or not. So here's my guy. He's getting ready to fight the Doctor for the Athenaeum. His gear level is 74, but to get to this point, I've only actually legitimately fought one boss, maybe two or three depending on what you count as fighting. But even for encountering, as you can see, I've skipped a lot of difficulty along the way, including things like Octavian or Marja the Dark Savant, which people might consider as mandatory for progressing in the game. So lots of cheese incoming, but if it sounds like something that you're interested in, then let's jump straight in. So, starting a new game, the first boss that you want to be able to beat up is the Alpha Wolf, because wolf form is incredibly useful. So track him down. We're not going to start a fight. Again, we don't like to fight bosses. We like to just get their goods in other ways. So sit around collecting wood. For collecting resources while waiting, there's really only two priorities for the method that we're going to be employing. You need sulfur as a first priority when you get a weapon that can actually dig into sulfur, and wood. And so there is no lost time in just stopping and collecting a whole bunch of wood from trees. Okay, so all you have to do is follow the wolf around until he's in close range to a boss that's bigger than him, which is pretty much any boss. Here's Goreswine the Ravager, so we just start a fight between the two and we run away. Sit back behind a tree, heal up, wait for the fight to end. Most times you can predict who's going to win in a battle between two bosses. In this situation, Goreswine is definitely going to beat up the Alpha Wolf, and that's fine because that's what we want. Okay, they should be about done, so we come out and have a look. Looks like they're still going. Nope, there's the Alpha Wolf down. So when you're draining the blood of a V beastie, you're completely immune to damage, so it is completely fine to drain while Goreswine is trying to pop us with his bone explosions and all that sort of stuff. We're completely safe. Get the skill and then leg it out of there. Next order of business is to get ourselves some copper for a copper sword. So the best place to do this is the copper mine, the bandit copper mine. It's got Errol the Stonebreaker in it. Normally we would skip this guy. He is not at all relevant for the plan that I'm introducing here. But if you recall, I said there is one fight that we have to do legitimately later on, and this guy is actually excellent practice for that. So Errol here has one move, at least at the start, he has one move where he telegraphs he's about to do an attack, and then he launches a wave of fire on the ground in the direction that you're moving. So if you move off to, say, the right, and then he goes to launch his attack, and you go, okay, actually I'm moving left, he'll continue launching his attack off to the right. You can control things so that you never get hit, at least by this attack. He has some others. I think if you get close, he does a spin. I think later on he introduces some five-way beam attacks. But if you can get down pat the dodging and controlling his single fire line so that no matter what's happening, you're always on top of things and he's just launching it off in the wrong direction whenever he does it, then that will stand you in great stead for the fight that we actually have to do later. So get some practice in. He does give us a chaos skill, which can be nice. That's not essential, but it can certainly be nice for dealing with little guys early in the game. But yeah, this guy, completely skippable, but good practice. Okay, so moving on, we get our copper and back to base. Okay, here we are making our little copper sword, which we need to be able to get sulfur deposits that we walk past. Don't worry at this stage about fine-tuning your base or anything like that. Yes, people can come in and raid stuff, but we don't really care. We're speeding through, and it's much better to get a massive head start on beasties in multiplayer than it is to have a nice defendable base and protect your couple of stone bricks. So anyway, moving along, the next boss that we want to beat up is Goreswine, because he gives us the ring, which is a very useful piece of equipment. So run off to the cemetery. Goreswine, as seen by him encountering the Alpha Wolf earlier, goes on voyages quite often. Follow him around. Much like with the wolf, we want to be just getting resources while we wait for him to bump into someone tougher than him. The person he's most likely to bump into that's tougher is Lydia the Chaos Archer. If they don't run into each other, it's because Goreswine will be up at his graveyard and Lydia's route will take her past the graveyard entrance, Ships in the Night. So when Goreswine is hanging around in the graveyard, just hang around by the entrance. When you see Lydia approaching, just jump in, tap Goreswine on the shoulder, say, hey, come down here for a minute. Lydia, you do the same thing. You just bring them to meet in the middle. Both these guys actually follow you quite a long way, so there's not too much stress in them losing aggro before you reach the second one. So here's Goreswine coming down the stairs, Lydia coming up the stairs. Lydia should completely kick Goreswine's butt. I have seen before Goreswine get the better of Lydia, in which case, hey, great, we get Lydia's moves and we go back to tracking Goreswine again. That's just a nice bonus. Don't do what I'm doing here, by the way, and get hit by Lydia's arrow. As you can see, it really hurts because, of course, we have no gear to speak of whatsoever. And it's also in the daylight, which is also not optimal, but that's not necessarily controllable. Anyway, just make sure that you don't back off too far. Make sure their fight keeps on going the full distance. There's Goreswine. He's under half health now, so getting there. He's still targeting us, which, hey, that's fine. His moves are actually pretty well telegraphed. Again, I've just walked through another one. Just don't get hit as much as I am. Even if you do get hit, by the way, and go down, though, make sure you watch the fight to the end, because as long as you're still yet to respawn at your coffin, their fight will keep on going, and as long as there's a winner, you can come back and claim the blood of the loser later on. So, okay, Goreswine's down, we drink his blood, get his skill, and move on once again. Quick stop back at base in order to build our ring. While we're here and waiting, this is a good opportunity to do things like build our grinder, which base item for infrastructure of the base, so we're going to need it. It takes whetstones. The easiest way to get whetstones is to just go to one of the traders. They're only 8 copper a piece. You should have found a couple of copper coins by now. You should be able to afford 4 whetstones. This is where base location is extremely important. There are really 2 factors which influence where I decide to put my base at the start of the game. The first is distance to shopkeepers. Should be quite small because we're going to have to go to them a couple of times. The second is, for later on, distance to the exit cave from Silverlight Hills. So that will become useful later on, but I would suggest, and feel free to make your own decisions on this front, but I would suggest putting your base somewhere between those 2 locations. So somewhere between the merchants and the cave exit. Okay, whatever the case, we find ourselves back at base, we build our grinder, our ring should be just about done. Again, don't worry about where you're putting your grinder and all that sort of stuff. Anywhere will do at this point. We're really just trying to speed through the early game and in fact the mid game and just get straight to late game. So the ring makes us tougher. Now we should be tough enough to go back to the Goreswine, Lydia the Chaos Archer fight, but affect the outcome in the other direction and drain Lydia. So back we go. The reason that we're able to affect this fight in the other direction so easily this time, yes, we're tougher because of the ring, so we can do a bit more damage and we can soak some more hits, but we don't really want to do either of them. Like, a little bit of damage is fine. But the real trick is that Lydia's arrows target a single target. So there's her shooting some skeletons. She just keeps on firing in the one direction. If we can get her to shoot at us and then, say, hide behind a tree or sidestep the bullets, this gives Goreswine the chance to just do his mass area attack. And even if he's targeting us with that attack, some damage should still go through to Lydia. And she's a bit of a glass cannon. She doesn't actually have that many hit points. All we need to do is give Goreswine enough time to get the win. So again, getting a little bit of damage on her is fine. So a couple of little volleys into her. Similar tactic to last time, but this time we're going to be more in the middle of it. Don't push it, obviously. We don't want to die and have to go through the whole waiting for them to be close to each other again routine, if we can help it at all. But do stay in the mix and try and distract Lydia. So there's her getting a couple of shots off at us. Yes, she got Goreswine with a couple of hits. But as you can see, Goreswine is just filling the area with damage, and Lydia won't last long. So just keep her busy, couple more shots into her. Okay, she's shooting Goreswine. This doesn't look good. Goreswine's still alive though, might be okay. If this all goes to hell and Goreswine does fall down, Lydia is so low on health now that we should be able to finish her off anyway. As it is, Goreswine won the day, hooray for Goreswine, so we drain Lydia and we're ready to move on again. That was extremely close, by the way, there. It doesn't have to be that close every time. Obviously, there's a little bit of luck involved in this approach, but you try it a couple of times, Goreswine's going to come out on top. Okay, so moving on. It's time for Keely the Frost Archer. This fight is just complete cheese, so you can choose whatever spells you like for this fight. I prefer to use Aftershock and the Undead skill that we got off Goreswine. For this fight, all we're going to do is play Ring a Rosie around this well in the middle. It's not exactly an advanced tactical approach, but it does the job, and as you'll see, it is completely safe. So kill off the guys around so that you don't have people joining in the fight from the sides. A night is more than enough time to do this fight. So just waiting for her to come back into view. A couple more fodder guys to deal with. We'll take them out before we start up. These spells I don't find particularly good for mob fights, but they are useful for boss fights sometimes, and this is a occasion when I think it's useful. But again, choose your own spells. There is no right or wrong choice. As you'll see, as long as you fight around the well, everything's fine. Okay, so here she is. Time to start things up. I might as well toughen up to full health. You never know when it might actually come in handy. Okay, so kick off the fight, stand behind the well. That is all there is to it. She'll shoot, she can't do anything, she'll take a step to the side, we pop her with another spell, and we step behind the well. I have encountered this in the bosses which I have to actually legitimately fight count. You can probably see why. There is no danger, there is no threat, we just... I could almost have some Benny Hill music playing while doing this fight. It's really that sort of cheesy. In fact, I may just hit double speed for the rest of this fight just to save a little bit of time. Okay, so you may be interested to know that this is actually another fight that we could bypass if we wanted. If our goal was to fight as few V-Bloods as possible to get to endgame gearing, then yes, we could skip Keely here. But doing that, we could also skip the Alpha Wolf, we could also skip Goreswine, because all he gives us is a ring and we don't technically need that. We're going for the easiest route and the most reliable route, not the one that actually ends up with the least bosses fought. That would be a different video and possibly a bit of fun to try, but yeah, the fact that Keely here allows us to build Night Stalker armor and upgrade that from the research desk into whatever the next level is, and it prepares us for the end of Act 1 boss, which is the boss which we actually have to legitimately fight in order to get through no matter what we're doing. So it's best to be as prepared as possible for that fight, and with that in mind, taking all the gear that we can get beforehand is just a good plan. Okay, so the fight's over. As you can see, we didn't take a single bit of damage, so I'll just slow the video down and we'll go back to normal speed. She does have a couple of moves there where she does a Frost Nova, just you're on the other side of the well, it doesn't matter. She had a spray arrows everywhere, you're on the other side of the well, plenty of room to dodge. If you've got any questions, feel free to ask, but hopefully that fight is just straightforward enough that it shouldn't even count. As long as you know about the well, it's all good. Okay, so back to base. We've got a tannery now, we make some leather. We've got some leather, we make our full set of Night Stalker. Again, don't stress at this stage about building your base. It's a waste of time. As you can see, I'm just laying down my simple workbench and my castle heart and stuff, just higgledy-piggledy. There is time for building the base later. In fact, if you have a look, I'm now up to build an enclosed room. Yes, we want to do that to get access to the castle teleporter, but no, we don't need to make it a big, extravagant, like going collecting stone and stuff. A 1x1 room will actually do just to progress that quest. It's obviously not a real base, it is just a temporary to progress fast, and yeah, there will be time for building later. Okay, so next up, anyway, now that we have our gear, we are going to bypass a bunch of bosses and run straight to the Iron Mine. So it's located here on the map, roughly. The reason for this is we want to find Meredith, the Bright Archer. Here she is wandering through the mine. You can actually follow along behind her and just pick up all the loot that she leaves behind from fights and open all the chests that she makes nice and safe by killing everyone in sight. She does leave this band of humans, which is actually a little bit unlucky here. I've encountered them, and so they're causing me a little bit of grief. But it's okay. The main thing is to just follow Meredith around until she meets Krieg the Undead General. Now, in a one-on-one fight, 9 out of 10 times, Krieg is going to be victorious, and that's what we want. If it ends up that Meredith actually beats Krieg, don't stress. Much like Goreswine versus Lydia, we take the win, we drain the blood, and we come back and do it again. If things go according to plan though, and we do get to Drainer, then we will get a Storm spell point, which we can spend on Ball Lightning, which is one of the main cheese items that we will be using for the remaining V Blood encounters in the game. So Krieg and Meredith fighting up ahead. Looks like it's just finished up. You can just see Meredith's arrow there not moving, a clear sign that she's no longer with us. Jump in, take her blood, and go back home again. You are going to need a little bit of iron in the future, so I would suggest actually filling up your bags before you go home, since you're here anyway. But you can always come back for more iron and follow Meredith around in the future if you need more supplies. Okay, so back home, we open up our spell book, go over to the Storm page. We actually have access to 3 spells. If you haven't noticed by now, I don't tend to use counters at all for any of the fights. I find them a bit of a waste of time. Cyclone is quite strong in its own right, but Ball Lightning is insanely useful, and you will see why. It combos up later on even more so, but even just for the next fight, you'll see just how useful it is. Speaking of the next fight, it is time for Clive the Firestarter. This guy will unlock a minor explosives box and an alchemy table, both of which are extremely useful as we progress on. So, off to the sulfur mines. This is another fight where you should clear it out of all the resources in the area when you're here. So Clive, we are going to fight him. He only has one move to be wary of. I'll try and get him to do it. It's a short range move. When he takes a little bit of damage, he just almost continuously does it. It doesn't do that much, but it is consistent. So just running around after him here. He's going to prove me wrong by not doing it by the look of it. His other moves are easy to dodge, very heavily telegraphed. You can see the big red circles, just don't stand in them when they explode. I would have thought he would have done his move by now, but any moment now. There we go. So he throws a sticky bomb at you, and you can see the damage that it does is not the end of the world, but significant enough that you don't want a whole stream of them. So the way to fight this guy, you don't need to take any damage at the start, by the way, is just to launch a ball lightning and run around the corner. And then launch a ball lightning and run around the corner. This is just like a big version of the well that we used for Keely the Frost Archer. We're just going to keep on running in circles. There is absolutely no danger, so I don't count this as a fight. You won't see any special moves from him. His only dangerous move is that sticky bomb that I showed you. I'll just grab these health globes to heal up a little bit. You can get some extra shots in with Chaos Volley or whatever your secondary spell is. Okay, so some other guys have joined the fight. That's fine. They'll step in the ball lightning as well that we're leaving behind as we run around this rock. As long as we're not in line of Clive when he throws a sticky bomb, as long as there's no direct line of sight, then we're completely safe and there's nothing to fear. And that's actually pretty amusing. I didn't know Clive could sticky bomb his friends. That's the first time I've seen that. There you go, things you learn. I suppose it might be possible to exploit that somehow to make this fight a little bit faster if it does damage to Clive as well, but it's not really necessary. As you can see, very quick and easy. Ball lightnings, whatever other spell you want to throw in, and just keep on going around in circles. I actually think Aftershock would be a better choice than Chaos Volley for this fight, by the way. Again, it doesn't really matter. It would make it slightly easier perhaps, but it's already dead easy, so it doesn't matter. Okay, so Clive going down, time to drain his blood. Again, don't forget to claim all the sulfur that you can while you're here. We are going to use every last drop of it. In fact, when you get a servant later on and you can send them out for supplies, I realise a lot of times people send them to the fisherman place for fish, maybe the copper mine for copper, the iron mine if you get them tough enough for iron. No, with this plan, just keep on sending them to the sulfur mine. Anytime you get a chance, just send another follower to the sulfur mine. Every bit of sulfur in the supply pile is going to be useful in the long run. Okay, back to base one more time. Let's build ourselves our alchemy table. Once again, alchemy table can't be stolen, so it doesn't matter if we just build it in the open. If people are robbing our base, then good luck to them. But they're really just wasting their time compared to the speed at which we're progressing through the game. Okay, what comes next depends a little bit on how comfortable you are with the end of Act 1 boss. I like to be as prepared as possible for him, so I would suggest if you don't already have a Ring of the Warlock or an upgraded ring of some kind that you like, go to the shopkeeper and buy one. They sell the books fairly cheaply. And go make one, and then we're going to go take on Nicholas the Fallen just for the paper press. But yeah, that's entirely skippable if you're comfortable getting through the Act 1 boss with the gear that you have here. So the way that I've chosen to do things is I've been hoarding my paper to date, only spending books at the research table. It's now time to spend up all the paper. We're going to go get a paper press. All that wood that we've been processing that we picked up, tracking the Alpha Wolf and Goreswine the Ravager, that's all made a bunch of sawdust, which ironically people tend to leave in bases even if they're robbing it, as they don't see much value in it. It allows us to just speed through a whole bunch of text at the research table and hopefully allowing us to get an upgraded set of armor for Quincy the Bandit King. Okay, so Nicholas the Fallen here, we've got a lightning ball which makes this fight a lot easier, and we've also got Aftershock, which is thoroughly recommended for this fight, those two spells. While this might look like another example of practicing our move to the right, let them fire, dodge to the left type mechanic, not that you would use this guy for practice anyway, but this is not one of those times. This guy, when he starts firing, you just want to keep on moving in the one direction. For this fight, by the way, you shouldn't take any damage at all for the fight. There is really... the main trick of this fight is to just dodge the bullets, and when he does his little teleport blink, that's when we blink away. That's really all there is to it. Apart from that, we just lay down area effects and he'll die eventually. So run away from the skeletons, just keep on running away, run away and dodge his green things. Eventually he'll fire three of those green homie missile swarms rather than just one. That's okay. All you have to do is find the gap and life is good. I may actually speed this fight up as well, as there's a lot to get to and there's not really much to cover left in this fight. I will say, you can probably see that I'm focusing fire on the skeleton archers when he summons one. They can peck away for very small amounts of damage, but it adds up over the course of a long fight, so there's nothing wrong with taking them down as a priority. If the skeletons get too much for you, it's also fine to just throw a couple of AoE spells their way just to dwindle their numbers a bit. Again, whatever you feel comfortable with. Here's that mass swarm of homing missiles I was talking about that he starts firing eventually. Looks like he actually fires 4 waves, not 3, my mistake. But as long as you find a gap in the first edge of the wave, then that gap will continue on throughout the middle of it. There's not really any difference between dodging 1 wave and dodging 4. I did say at the start of this video that I only fight 1 boss legitimately, maybe 2 or 3 depending on what you count as a real fight. This is one of those maybe 2 or 3 bosses, as yeah, he is easy once you get the hang of him, but to a first time player this fight is a bit of a nightmare. But again, you can skip him if you don't like him. Apart from the paper press though, we do actually get something which is useful for the Quincy fight. We get an ultimate skill. And in fact, the ultimate undead skill is one that we do need later on. We can get the ultimate undead skill elsewhere, but it is quite convenient for a couple of bosses from now to have ourselves the summon undead spider. You'll see why when the time comes, but for the time being, you can just trust me, it is useful. So if you can learn this fight, I do recommend that you do so. One nice thing about learning this fight actually is that the graveyard is always nighttime. It's never daytime in the graveyard, so you can do 24 hours a day just practicing the fight. There's some crows down the steps if you need to replenish your blood supply. Yeah, it's not like other fights where you have to clear some mobs out and then time your practice to land at night time so you're not burnt by the sunlight, and then rinse repeat the next day. If you want to get good at this fight, you can just keep on putting in the practice. Okay, so fight's over, drain his blood. I did get hit once there in the fight, which you can see it does a little bit of damage, but it's not the end of the world. It is a long fight though, so brain farts are bound to happen on occasion. It's by no means the longest fight we're going to have to do this game though. Okay, so off to our skills page. We want to unlock the Volatile Arachnid. It is by far the better of these two skills for our purposes. And it's going to be nice to have it for Quincy the Bandit King, which is next on our agenda. So in order to get to him, we don't need to go bare form. We have an alchemy table. We can make up a small explosives box. You do want to max out your gear before going into Quincy. I've nearly got a set of Warlock, but I have to take some Marauder gloves. That's fine. I would obviously prefer a full set of Warlock gear, but we're just taking the best that we can get as we speed through. We're not going to sit around wasting time fine-tuning the gear that we're only going to be throwing away in no time anyway. Okay, so off to the Bandit King's encampment. Dump down the explosives box and give it a thwack in case you haven't used them before. It's what causes it to go pop. In we run. So for this fight, take out his 2 minions, back out, heal up, and jump in. So this is the one real fight, the fight that there's no circumventing with cheese, there's no super easy way to do this fight apart from actually just doing it. But all that practice that you put in with Errol the Stonebreaker, it's going to come in incredibly useful here. So for the first half of the fight, Quincy only really has 2 moves that we're looking at. One is he sends a whole lot of ground flames out in various directions. We move to the side for that one, and in fact dash if we need to get out of the way before they trigger. The second one though is the important one. He throws an axe, and this axe, if we're moving to the right, he'll start to throw it. We move to the left, he throws it where we would have been going, not to where we are. This will be familiar to you, and why we've put in all that practice. We don't want to get hit by the axe. The axe is really painful if it hits you. Even once is a pain in the butt. But it can also stun you, and then you can get you with other moves, and it can cascade into a nightmare. His other moves, he's got a charge, which we can move to the right, move to the left. He'll charge off course, that's fine. He's got some close range moves. We're never going to be close range, so that's also fine. So when doing this fight, you should be able to get to the point that he summons minions without taking any damage. If you take a hit, I suggest you just step out of the arena, get some blood, heal up, come back in, do it again. You should be able to do the first part of the fight damage free. Again, it takes some practice, but that's my suggestion anyway. This also saves you having to build more minor explosives boxes to bust your way in here again. When he does summon a minion, this is when I like to use my ultimate just to make sure that the minion's down and we can go back to fighting as normal for a little while. From here, look, I wish I had some good advice for you, but you've got spells which he can't deflect back at you. You've got him down to half health. Most of his attacks won't be bothering you. It's useful to note that when you blink, he will target your shadow temporarily, which means when he starts doing his 5 dashes in a row, or however many it is, then you can sort of mitigate the problems there by having him do ground fire to the side of the arena that you're not on. But really, the important part is just being able to dodge the axe, and then it just takes a good run. And it might take you a couple of attempts, but you'll get there in the end. Okay, so just while this fight's finishing up, there is one area that I should touch on that I haven't yet, and that is why it's advantageous in the first place to do some fights out of order. So a reasonable question would be, why not just do them in the order that you encounter them? And this comes down to the damage that you deal and the damage that you receive compared to the gear level of your enemy. So at an even match, with the same gear levels. You'll be doing whatever amount of damage. For every gear level above the enemy that you are, you deal 1% more damage and take 1% less damage. And for every gear level below them that you are, I believe that changes from 1% to 4%, and so that builds up quite quickly. So the difference between taking on a beastie that's, say, 10 levels above you compared to taking him on later in the game when you're 10 levels above him, that translates to around 50% extra damage that you're dealing and 50% less damage that you're taking, which means you don't actually have to perfect the fights down in any way, shape or form. You can just blitz through them. Of course, getting to the point where your gear levels above some of the important bosses can take some finesse, but that's really what this video is about, how to do that in the first place. Okay, so Quincy the Bandit King's down. Great, he unlocks a bunch of important stuff for us. So back to base we go. He gives us the tailoring bench and the smithy, both buildings that we now want to build. The smithy requires iron ingots, so I would suggest enclosing your furnace in a room and giving it a smithy floor to speed up the iron smelting process. While we wait, I'm just going to quickly go take on Beatrice the Tailor. This is a very quick fight. You should be able to do it first time. There's only one trick to this fight, and that is don't kill the guards in the town where Beatrice is running around. So try and leave everybody alive, especially the guys with fire arrows. So here we are, it's night time, it's time to lay into her. She'll run away for the first half of the fight. This was actually one of my favourite additions to the game in the recent update to Brutal Mode. The Beatrice fight halfway through really caught me by surprise in a really fun way. I'm assuming that if you're watching this video, at least to this point, that you've probably fought Beatrice in the past. It used to just be that you would run her into the ground after chasing her for however long it takes. Now when you get her to halfway, she will transform into a demon-esque, I don't even know what you'd call it, big purple demon dude. And yeah, at that point, it doesn't matter if we die, because the guards folk around the town will actually finish her off for us. Obviously, it's better if we don't die and have to run back. But the fire arrows that you can see me being burnt by there are particularly effective at dealing with the big purple demon dude. Not essential. Guards in towns are fairly numerous and seem to be pretty much everywhere, so they will take it down in the end. But yeah, fire arrows just make it a bit faster. Okay, so big purple demon dude, we keep on trying to lay in some damage if we can, but as you can see there, the guards shooting at Beatrice. I'm just going to go find some more guards. There's got to be some around here somewhere. Here are some down on the docks, so come with me guys, we've got a fight to do. As you can see, the fire arrow there that Beatrice is standing in the result of, doing massive amounts of damage to her. We don't really need to learn the fight well because, well, we're not really the ones doing this fight. So as you can see, I'm taking a whole bunch of damage. That's fine. Even if I die, that's fine. This is just a fight which is, it's fun. It's a bit of a filler fight that the game's thrown in. I find it a bit of a break from the normal stuff. It's a little bit comical, yeah, but this is certainly not one to finesse or fine-tune or stress about learning the intricate mechanics of. Just sit back and enjoy the show of demon versus guards folk. Okay, so hold to extract the blood, hooray, fight's over again, and then we're back to base, and this is the point in the game where I mentioned there will be a time for base building. This is that time. So the reason for this is that we're smelting iron ingots back home, and that is quite a time-consuming process, and it's also probably the first thing which people will steal if they bust into your base. So this is a great chance to run around, build some walls, build some doors, build some rooms. Even when we build our smithy, we now need iron in order to build our iron swords, so back to smelting, so even more time for base building. There's no rushing the iron smelting process. We could race off to really distant areas and try and get it as loot or something, but realistically, this is a good time to just focus on getting your base the way you actually want it to look. Build all those little things that maybe you've been putting off. I'm going to stick down a loom here. Haven't got my tailoring bench yet. For beating Quincy, we also unlocked another ultimate. This Chaos Ultimate is actually very useful in some circumstances, and I prefer it for taking on little mobs. For certain boss fights, the spider is better, but just for general day-to-day use, I find the Chaos spell better. But again, preferences will vary. Okay, so we've finally got enough iron. We get our iron sword. The first thing we want to do with that is go raid the cotton field up in the Dunley farmlands. We couldn't do it with a copper sword, hence the need for the iron. When you're raiding these fields, you're going to be hit pretty hard with Garlic Curse or debuff or whatever it's called. And since you're going to be maxed out on that anyway, I would suggest taking the time to also raid all the farmhouses attached to these cotton farms. They'll quite often have large amounts of thread. They'll sometimes have some glass or some fish or some... they've got useful supplies. The thread is probably the most useful at this point, but they've got all sorts of stuff. There's some more cotton. It takes an extra couple of seconds to raid them, and it's extremely useful. Okay, so back to base, build our tailoring bench, and hopefully you've picked up enough supplies on your farm raids to now craft a hunter's cloak and a full set of hollow fang. Combined with our iron sword, that should give us just enough gear level to track Bane, and Bane is responsible for 3 out of the next 4 bosses that we want to fight, and he's almost impossible to find if you can't track him, as he disguises himself as human and just wanders around the map. Okay, so the next 4 bosses you can do in whatever order they happen to be most convenient. We want to, 1, get Bane to kill Frostbringer for us, 2, get Bane to kill Jade for us, 3, get Jade to kill Bane for us, and 4, we're going back to the Iron Mine to get the Undead General. So track down Bane, scout out around him. You can get some more wood at this point. Wood is still going to be useful in the long run, other supplies, whatever. I've encountered Belmont as my first one, so Belmont should kick the crap out of Bane. This is quite an uncommon encounter, by the way, as Belmont's patrol pathway is really quite a long one, so the chance for him bumping into Bane is actually quite small. I'm going to trigger a fight between them. All you have to do is make Bane into a beastie by hitting him once, and he'll start his thing. And just like with our other fights previously, if I happen to die, that's okay. These guys will finish the fight anyway, even without me. I'm just for a bit of fun going to see if I can put some damage into Belmont, because he is quite a high level boss. It would be a bit of fun to get a bonus of. I could play around with whips, I believe is what he unlocks, or sanguine whips rather. Yeah, I'm going to treat this so as just the same as if Bane had encountered Jade, as even if I put in damage into Belmont, I still don't think he's going to go down. Our gear level is stupidly below where it needs to be to deal any damage whatsoever to him, and as you can see, I'm not even making a dent. Let's have a look how they're doing. It looks like they've finally stopped attacking me and started attacking each other. Looks like they got one hit on each other. Bane lost half his life and Belmont got a little scratch. So no real surprises here. Let's jump in and throw a couple more shots around just because. There is a small risk, by the way, that when Bane does his, hey, I'm actually a half dozen humans, if you die at that exact moment, I have seen other bosses just decide, oh look, there's only humans around, and wander off. So that's why I'm jumping back into the mix, just in case that's the point that Bane was up to. But it looks like Bane's fallen over, so now Belmont one-shots me. That's all good. We will respawn, run back to this spot, and drain Bane. While you have a little bit of time to get back and do the draining, I would suggest not dawdling. I'm not sure on what the reset time is between a boss being downed and left alone and deciding, hey, okay, I can resume my patrol route now. It does give you quite a bit of time, but it's not an infinite amount of time. Okay, so once Bane has been drained, you will get a red shadow showing where he will be as soon as his timer countdown is done. Here he is popping back into existence, and you can begin the tracking process again. Now we're looking for Jade to beat Bane or Bane to beat Frostbringer. Next one I happen to have encountered is Bane and Frostbringer. They're relatively close. As you can see, I've been following Bane around, but with the tracking on for Frostbringer. So I knew that he was close. You can see here I'm sort of hoping that they're going to cross paths, but that wasn't to be, so all good. Attack one, bring him after you, head down to the other way, bring him back. This is much like Gore Crusher versus Lydia all over again. Just that these guys don't have quite the same follow range. At least that's the way it seems to me. I haven't done huge numbers of experiments on that. That's just the vibe that I get. Okay, so they're going at it now. Well, they're mainly going for me at this point, but that's just the way of these things at the start. Okay, get behind a tree, heal up. Just as a rough guide, by the way, the time it takes to follow Bane around and actually get all 3 of the Bane fights done, it can take maybe even up to like 3 days of game time play. It's still by far the fastest way to do this. If you've got a faster way to take down Jade, Bane and Vincent, then hey, feel free to share in the comments, but yeah, to my knowledge, this is the fastest and also the easiest way. As you can see, I haven't had to learn the mechanics, I haven't had to gear up or do anything other than just walking around behind Bane and clearing out the supplies of military outposts and whatever else he happens to be walking past at the time. Okay, so Vincent down, 1 more to go. Next one is Jade. Now, Jade versus Bane is actually a very close fight. It can go either way, so my suggestion is, if you're in this position, do as much damage to the one that you want to lose as possible, as quickly as possible. So I've got them fighting. Now I'm going to stick in an ultimate into Jade, just to try and tip the balance that little bit more. Again, it doesn't matter if we die. In fact, we're almost certainly going to. There we go. Daylight certainly doesn't help for that sort of situation. Now we can watch the fight and you can get a feel for how tough they are against each other. At this stage it could still go either way, but hopefully that little bit of damage that we put into Jade will be just enough to sway things in our favour. If it doesn't, quickly run back, of course, and try and trigger the fight again before they get out of range. But hooray, looks like Bane was victorious, so get your way back here, drain the blood, and it's off to the Iron Mine for Krieg next. Now Krieg will, I've mentioned before, 9 out of 10 times kick the crap out of Meredith. So what we actually do is we cheese Krieg. So wait till he's on patrol. This is a good place where he's wandering up the side here. And then we're going to Lightning Ball and run, and Lightning Ball and run. And throw in our other spell. Again, I've chosen Chaos Volley, but I think Aftershock would be the far superior choice here. But the important bit is just to keep on launching lightning balls and keep on running in circles, around and around we go. And for this one I am actually going to hit 2 times speed again. This fight goes for quite a while and there's not really much happening. I realise I copped a hit at the start there and it won't be the last hit. In fact, I'll cop a few more from backing into skeletons with bows and other such things like that, but that just shows you that it's actually fairly safe. You can take some time out and get a heal in if you really need to. You just get a little bit further away. He'll still keep on following you as long as you're in this loop. But yeah, the main thing is just to keep on lightning balling and backing off, lightning balling and backing off. If you're lucky, you will cross the humans that kicked the crap out of me last time I was in these mines. They do a fair bit of damage to Krieg. If you are at this long enough, we'll cross paths with Meredith and she will also jump in and do some damage to Krieg. He'll probably kill both the humans and Meredith, but they do help speed things up. But most of this fight is actually on us, so just stick with it, don't lose your focus, and you'll get there in the end. While this is going, for anyone that's decided not to fast forward through this section and is actually listening to me waffle on while watching the same couple of moves on repeat, I have no idea what to call this video, so I thought I would put it to the internet hive mind. I realise this risks me ending up with a name like Bodie McBoatface or something, but if you've got an idea for what to call this video, I've drawn a bit of a blank. So if you've got a name that you think might be a good one for it, feel free to leave it in the suggestions, and yeah, I might just take you up on it. Well, this is actually one of the more unlucky attempts I've had at Krieg so far. Not only have the humans not shown up, which I guess they're just never around when you want them, but also I would have expected Meredith by now. This is probably one of the longest kitings of Krieg that I've done without seeing her. I mean, I guess that's good in that it shows you that we can survive for a really long time without help, but on the other hand, it is a little dull. You may be asking, is it actually necessary? Do we really need Krieg in order to progress? And unfortunately the answer is yes. So he gives us a level 2 undead spell point, and that is vital for the next fight that we want to do, where we're really going to be jumping the gun and going to take on Angrim the Purifier, who is a level 61, so 14 or 15 levels of gear above where we are currently. And for cheesing him, the spell point is absolutely vital. Okay, looks like Meredith's finally here to join the fight. Better late than never. We'll just run away and leave them to it for a second. As always, if you die here, don't release back to the graveyard immediately. Make sure that the fight is actually done and that there's a winner and a loser. I think Meredith may have actually just killed Krieg with a bit of a one-shot there, which is fortunate. So we'll quickly zip around the other side. Now that we're not kiting, we can afford to go wolf form just to speed this up just a little bit. I'm not actually sure if Meredith has won the fight or not, but the fact that Krieg doesn't seem to be following us anymore is a pretty good sign. Okay, so Meredith's wandering around, which means Krieg is dead. There he is. Jump on in, drain the blood, and hooray, that fight's finally done. We can head back to base and get on with cheesing the rest of the game. Okay, just a quick recap of all the useful stuff we just got off those last 4 bosses. Again, you could have done them in any order. So, one, we got Vincent, who gave us the ability to build jail cells, which is incredibly useful for keeping our blood supply up as the game goes on. But he also gave us reinforced planks, which is mandatory for later on with our strategy. Second up, there was Krieg, who, as mentioned, gave us the undead spell point, which we vitally need. Third up, there was Bane himself, who gave us slashes, which is extremely useful, but also human form, which we absolutely need moving forward. And last up, there was Jade, who gave us a tier 2 chaos spell point, which gives us the best movement skill in the game. But she also gave us the ability to make primal blood essences at the advanced blood press, which if we want to be making any of the late game loot, we're going to need that as well. So that's the reason that we just did all those 4 bosses. Head back to base, build what you need to do, get yourself up to date with any of your quests that you've got happening and all that sort of stuff. Also, open up your spell book. The first must-have spell is Veil of Chaos, which is, as I was saying, the best movement spell in the game. I'm going to unlock the other Chaos thing there because I've got the spell point. The undead, or unholy magic, spell that we want is Death Knight. This is amazing and synergizes really well with our Lightning Ball, as you will see. There are no frost spells that are necessary for our tactics, so we've got a couple of points free. The only reason I see for frost spells really is PvP, so take what you will. Okay, then it's off to our crafting area, off to make some iron slashes, and with that we are good to get back to it. So, off to Gloomrock, the Pools of Rebirth. You'll be looking for this little rock formation on the side, you'll find it, it's not hidden or anything. And then you want to pull Angrim the Purifier to the rock face, and we're going to kite him around in circles for... This fight goes for around 24 hours game time, depending on how you want to do it. So we will be fighting through the daylight. I'll show you the basics first, if I can actually pull him behind the rock. With this fight, we shouldn't be able to do it because we're so many gear levels below. But this is just showing how effective our Lightning Ball and our Death Knight actually are in unison. So we dump a Lightning Ball, it can be out of line of sight of us and it will still keep on doing the damage, as you can see here, ticking by. And the Death Knight allows us to position the enemy that we're after, in this case Angrim, so that he walks through the Lightning Ball, he comes around the right side so he doesn't surprise us with a punch to the back of the head if we're going clockwise and he decides to suddenly turn anti-clockwise. And for the damage, we have our Spider Ultimate, which is, okay, only once every 120 seconds or however long it is. But yeah, thrown into the mix, all we need is a indestructible terrain obstacle to work around, and we can do any boss that isn't locked into a fight arena. So we could, if we wanted to, do Dominant the Blade Dancer as well, because there's plenty of houses that are indestructible in her area and we can just kite her around that. She doesn't give us anything that we want though. Angrim here, however, does give us something that we want. He gives us the recipe for the Dawnthorn Regalia set. We already have the tailoring bench. We'll cover how to get the materials after this fight, which I've sped up to 2 times speed for the daylight hours because, well, there's really not much happening. Angrim here has another negative. On top of being able to be kited around terrain obstacles, he's also quite big, chunky, fat, gets caught on things quite a lot. So here I am running away from some guys that decided to join the fight. We're just going to kite him around trees, we're going to kite him around in the forest. We'll get him back to the rock face soon enough. But if you can see, he's really struggling, even at 2 times speed, to make any sort of movement progress whatsoever. Yes, he's got a ton of hit points and he can kill us in one hit, but that's not really going to help him if he can never actually get into the fight itself. Anyway, as I was saying, the Dawnthorn Regalia set that he gives us the recipe to, this allows us to jump a tier level in armor, the same way that we jumped earlier from copper swords to iron swords without going through merciless copper. We're going to jump from Hollow Fang to Dawnthorn without going through the intermediary Dark Magus armor or anything like that. This means that we don't need to worry about things like unlocking the study via killing Marja the Dark Savant, who... that's a tough fight, and I'm not actually familiar with any cheese to get through her, so let's just not do it, let's just bypass her. On the topic of cheese, just for anyone that's not fast forwarding this part of the video, now they know how to beat Angrum without taking a hit, I've put up a fair few videos now, and I've started to see around the place a few other people's videos where they're using my ideas and passing it off as their own, which is, I think, pretty uncool in the scheme of things. Like, people are obviously welcome to use my ideas, and I'm putting them out there to be used, and, you know, help yourself. But don't stick up a video and pass it off as your idea. I think that's, well, pretty weak in the scheme of things. For this video in particular, and even this fight in particular, I'm pretty sure I'm the only one to do Angrum this way. When we get to Cyril, I'm pretty sure I'm the only one to do him that way. There's a whole bunch of one-off fight styles that I've put together here. I've looked around on the internet, and it's one of the reasons that I decided to put this video together in the first place. A lot of people seem to be struggling on brutal mode with how do you beat the Fisherman? How do you beat Octavian? How do you get past? And they're doing the game, as far as I can see, everyone is doing the game linearly, woe to go, and no one else is bouncing around the way I was. So I figured, well, hey, I'll put the video out, share a different approach. But again, while I would like people to be using my ideas, and they're welcome to them, passing them off as their own, I just find a bit uncool. So I thought I'd mention it anyway. Okay, back to this. It looks like we're about to clock into night time, so I might actually speed this up a whole nother level. Let's go 4 times speed, because now that there's no sunlight to dodge, it really is just extremely basic. You might be able to do this fight in one night if you were to... I don't know if you've noticed, but I seem to miss quite a lot with my lightning ball. I am staying deliberately out of sight of Angrum as much as I can, because I am quite scared of his one-hit punch that he has, where he closes the gap and just goes kathwack. So the less that I can see him, the better. If you were to push it though, and to get hits with every lightning ball and do it flawlessly, yeah, you might be able to do it in a night, but again, I feel it's better safe than sorry. I wouldn't want to spend most of a night pushing it only to die at the end and have to restart. I would rather do a bit of a fight during the day, take it easy, and then come night time, we've got plenty of time for kiting him around the rock and finishing him off. Okay, getting him down won't be too much longer at this speed. We'll get him shortly. I do actually have one tip for this guy, just to potentially save you some grief if you're doing this strategy. So don't walk close to the pools. So you might have noticed when I was running away from humans that decided to join the fight earlier, I didn't back around the green pool, I instead backed into the forest. This is because when you step close to the pools, like that's cutting it a little bit fine there, honestly, but it should be fine. But much closer than that, and you risk being jumped or swarmed by those face-hugger, swamp-dwelling critters which come out in swarms and just cause havoc. And that would be a problem, because they would follow us further than Angrum would follow us if we were to run away, so we'd have to stop and fight. But of course, if we stop and fight, then we're going to have the problem that Angrum can just one-shot us with any number of his attacks, actually. I don't think there's many that wouldn't one-shot us. So anyway, just bear that in mind when you're doing this fight. It is advantageous, if it can be helped, to avoid the edge of the green pools. You probably would have seen, in fact, just getting to this fight area by running through the pools, that there's loot everywhere. This is because the other humans that patrol can trigger the facehugger swarms, and yeah, there are fights everywhere in this area, and it makes getting loot quite nice, but we've got better places to get loot shortly, so don't stress about staying here any longer than you have to. Once Angram's down, extract his blood and get out of Dodge as quickly as possible. Just because we've managed to kill the boss of this area should in no way imply that we're actually ready for this area. This area is still quite a long way above our gear level. We cheesed the boss, but yeah, all the time that we've saved by jumping ahead and doing fights like this, we don't want to waste that head start we have on everyone else by repeatedly running in over and over again to collect our corpse and try and get that little bit of extra loot. It's not worth it. We're going to keep the speed up, and to do that, just forget about Gloomrot for a little while. We'll be back. Okay, so looks like Angram's going to die just as the sun comes up, so let's go back to normal speed here. I think one more lightning ball should just about do the trick here. There he goes, in fact. An extremely long encounter, but again, completely safe. As you can see, just 24 hours, didn't even have a chance of him hitting me. Okay, I say that, there was a point if you were watching closely where he got a punch, but I managed to dodge it. But generally speaking, completely safe. So, back to base, and you'll see that our Dawnthorn gear requires pristine leather and silk. So, next step, Brighthaven in Silverlight Hills. So, chests and cupboards and lockers and such can have silk and pristine leather in this place, which is great, but you're not actually going to get that much of it, even if you look around quite carefully. The real trick is to find these hold to unlock boxes, which you can find hidden around the place. And they have around a 50-50 chance of having Gold Sun coins, and they can have anywhere between, I think I've seen as low as 20, and I think I've seen as high as 150 odd. But anyway, you get the Gold Sun coins, you stick with your human form, you go off to the city goods vendor, and you trade for silk and pristine leather. Sometimes you'll get a big haul, sometimes you'll get a small haul. It's not wasted time though, even if you're not getting great hauls, because the other loot that you'll be getting in this area, you'll be getting tier 3 books, you'll be getting fish and stuff like that, but you'll also be getting quite a fair supply of tier 4 jewels, of gold. You'll get more reinforced planks and glass that you can poke a stick at. The loot is really good. I've only really got 2 tips for this process. One is don't be greedy. If you're in human form and there's a chest there that you have to pop out of human form in order to open a chest, and there are guards right next door, don't go starting something, because the most annoying thing you can have to do is to go try and get your equipment back when you die. To pick it up, you have to not be in human form. Everyone attacks you, you die again, you have to go all the way back. It's a real pain in the butt. So be careful. The route that I take, I like to enter via the north entrance. There's a manor there with a lot of bookshelves and chests and tables of drawers and such. I then cross the square. There is another manor on the other side which has a similar setup full of goods. I then walk to the area that they've got the gallows set up. There are 2 shops on either side. They also have cupboards and such to raid, and by that stage I should have a supply of Gold Sun coins that's off to the trader, and then I've got a choice to make. I can either work my way through the docks, because the docks have chests and quite a lot of decent loot, or depending on the time of day I might just make a dash back to base, drop my loot off and do the circuit again. Okay, so once you've got your supplies and your armor's being made, we're going to make a quick stop off at the Transcendent Machine Factory for radium alloys. Now this can drop from chests or from just boxes that are lying around. If you're lucky, you might even find a gold chest or 2 lying around the place. It's not uncommon, but we are going to need a bit of it. We need 14 minimum, more is better, but you're going to need 14 radium alloy to continue with our plan. This should take you roughly 2 full bags, I'd say. You get a full bag of loot, you go back home, you come back, you get another full bag of loot. You should have the radium alloy that you need. It might take you an extra trip or 2 if you're unlucky. It might only take you 1 if you're quite fortunate. Don't worry too much about the guys here. As you can see here, I've got an entire screen of guys following me, but all I have to do is keep ahead of them, just keep on the move. And they're really not a threat. There are a couple of big robots and some guys that fire a green tractor beam, which can be annoying, but overall, if you just stay on the move, open, move on, smash boxes, move on, that should be pretty safe. Okay, so back to base, time to equip our new set of Dawnthorn, which is a substantial boost to our gear level. At this point, I like to stop off and do General Elena for the Stygian altar. You might choose to skip her. She's another one that we just choose an indestructible terrain feature and kite her around for a while. The reason I like to do her is because I like to be able to do the Mortium events when they come up and actually have something to spend my shards on. It's by no means mandatory. In fact, you've seen this before. I'll just hit 2 times speed. This is almost exactly the same as Angrim or in fact any other boss, as I was saying, we can do if they're out in the open and not stuck in an arena. There is one small difference with Elena though. She stops partway through the fight to put herself on an ice block, and if you get too far away from her, she will heal while on that ice block. When she does that, she has 3 moves, maybe 4. One is an Ice Nova. If you're not standing next to her, she won't do that. One is the heal, which, as I was saying, if you're too far away is when she does that. So just don't get too far away, don't get too close. The other 2 moves she has, one, she sprinkles arrows all over the place. This is where we just walk to the side continuously. When she finishes her 3rd spray of arrows, that's when you do our attack. And the other one she has is a couple of simultaneous ice barrages on the ground. We use our blink to get away from that. We stay clear till our blink is finished cooldown again, and then we dive back in. Okay, so in fact, since there's nothing new in that fight, I'm just going to jump ahead. Back to the Altar of Stygian Awakening. Now we've got it unlocked, we can spend some shards. There are 3 important ones to get, or useful ones to get, and a 4th one which is potentially useful. Use your own judgment there as to what you actually want to spend them on. Next up, we're going to spend all that sulfur and wood that we've been collecting all game. So with my supplies, I've managed to save up enough for 60 minor explosive boxes. This isn't an exact science, so there's no way of saying exactly how many you need. The best thing I can do is to just show you them in action and let you get a feel for how many you feel you might want to take in. We're behind Cyril the Smith's fight area. His is unusual in that most boss areas are counted as points of interest, so you can't actually lay boxes anywhere near them. The sliver of land behind Cyril's is not, so we're going to exploit that. Not having killed Ben the Wanderer, this area is still in Fog Forest, which makes this fight tough. He's many levels above us, so of course that's also tough. There's no area where we can kite him safely without encountering masses of mobs, which are really problematic for us in this area. And also this is one of the few bosses where you can lead him down a corridor, so you can actually trap it with the explosives boxes. So this is the boss of choice to do this tactic on. You may have noticed that my ultimate did almost no damage to him, like we're really underprepared for this guy normally. But here we are at the first trap point. Set it off, or in fact his sword sets it off, and we'll see how much damage he takes. Hang around the second one just to be sure. So if you see there, he's almost dead from the first trap, which is pretty good. We may have overdone it, but if you have a look, he dodged the second trap. So again, this is not an exact science. I prefer to have backups upon backups so I don't have to go farming for all the materials again, which would be a real pain in the butt. 3rd trap got him, not a prob. We drain his blood. Quickest fight you'll ever see for Cyril, and we're back to base. Time to build ourselves an advanced furnace so we can smelt some dark silver ingots. So obviously we don't have a weapon good enough yet to actually even collect dark silver. What are we going to do? This is where we use some of that radium alloy that we collected, and we craft up some big explosive boxes. Big explosive boxes are powerful enough to destroy dark silver nodes, mining nodes. You can't place them within the dark silver mine, which is the main place that people would normally get dark silver ore from, but you can find nodes lying around in the wilderness. There's at least a few in the Silverlight Hills area, which is my preferred area, but I believe there might also be some in Gloomrot if you look around. Okay, so we pop the node, 70 from that one, that's about standard. We're going to need to make 2 big explosive boxes to get enough dark silver ore for our purposes. Next on the list of things to get is spectral dust. Now you might think that the best way to get this is by farming chests or banshees or whatever up in the cursed forest, but actually this is a bit of a time trap. You can get maybe 5 spectral dust on a good run up there, and then you've got to wait for respawns. Not to mention, it's not at all guaranteed that you're going to be doing well in the fights up there because we don't actually have the gear yet. So we're going back to our plan that we used for Silk and Pristine Hide, except this time we're just buying the shopkeeper out of spectral dust. He sells 4 for 20 coins, which is more than enough for our needs. If you clear out the shopkeeper twice, you should have plenty of spectral dust for at least a little while. Okay, back to base to build ourselves our anvil. That's a large investment of our spectral dust. We've been smelting our dark iron ore, so now we have the ingots, and here we can jump up from iron weapons to dark silver weapons, the same way that we jumped from copper to iron earlier, just bypassing a tier. Once you've got a dark silver weapon, of course it's really easy to get dark silver ore because you just have to go to the silver mine. But we've actually now got decent weapon, decent armor. You can pick up a decent cloak just randomly by running around long enough in Brighthaven. This means the last thing to fix up is our jewellery. And to do that, we're going to need to beat up Baron de Bouchon the Sommelier. I have no idea if that's the way you pronounce it, but this guy anyway. Okay, so at the start of the video I said this method has one real fight that we need to do, maybe 2 or 3 depending on how you look at fighting. Nicholas the Fallen was one of them, maybe 2 or 3. This is the other one. Yes, we have to fight him. Yes, it's a legitimate fight. But I'm hoping that by the end of watching my fight here, and I started by walking into a barrel, so I'm obviously not very good at it, I expect you to be 100% confident with your ability to do this fight by the end. So, start of the fight, the barrels come from either the left or the right. There are 2 hiding spots. As you can see, hiding behind this little brewing contraption here, the barrels explode before reaching my spot, allowing me to cast spells at him, to heal up if I've taken damage from barrels, etc, etc. When the barrels stop, I head back to the middle of the room. I like to engage camouflage when I do that, just so that he doesn't accidentally get me with his rather damaging and slow-moving move, but it's better just to be cautious. When barrels are coming from the other side of the room, this is the hiding spot, right in the corner. They can't do anything to us when we're standing here, and yeah, we just launch some more attacks out to the Baron. We continue this until he's on around half health, and then barrels can start coming from the other 2 directions, front and back, and as you'll see, we have hiding spots for them as well, and it's just a matter of knowing where the hiding spots are and having our double movement skill. This is the reason why Veil of Chaos is so good, because we get to move twice as far in a single dash essentially, allowing us to cover distances like this when we need to. And yeah, the rest of the fight is just knowing when to throw attacks at the Baron and when to go invisible. I do suggest using the same spells that I'm using here. I've changed my ultimate, for instance, because the spiders tend to get a little bit beaten up by the barrels, but also he goes immune when he's doing that little fencing whirlwind move, and that can just deflect the spiders without them doing any damage whatsoever. So with the Chaos Ultimate, we can wait until there's an opening where he's finished doing his deflection fencing technique recently, and then launch some attacks at him. And obviously projectiles can get blocked by barrels, so we've chosen 2 spells that we can cast from underneath him from a distance. You can come in with potions, you can come in with vials of blood from your jail cells if you think you might need extra healing throughout this fight, because it is a fairly long one, but it is completely safe. This guy has no one-hit kills that are going to get us, which means as long as we stay on top of our healing, then it's just a matter of time. So if you've looked up this fight elsewhere online, you would have seen guides or you would have seen how-tos, and pretty much every single one would have said, take a Reaper. And obviously we're not. Why are we doing something different to what everyone else in the world seems to be doing? The reason comes down to our level. So in all the other fights that you might see, they're roughly the same level as the Baron, which means that with a Reaper you can one-hit the barrels with... You've got your spinny throw move and you've got your spin on the spot move, and the Reaper is incredibly useful if you want to actually take out the barrels and, I guess, fighting without cheese. But if we were to try and do that with, we've only got access to the Dark Iron Reaper, not the Sanguine version. Our level is substantially below the Baron's. When we try and do a spinny axe throw or our spin on the spot move, we're not going to kill a barrel in one, which means that we're just going to be absolutely pummeled after not very long at all. I've been hit by a couple of barrels already, and you can see while they do a couple of hundred damage, we can heal up no problem. But if we didn't have the chance to stop and heal from each one, we would have been dead long ago already. The real cheese of the method that I'm showing here is the chance that we get to heal every time we take even a bit of damage, because you may have noticed that the Baron here does a little Donkey Kong move over every barrel, and every time he does that, he interrupts his own attack, whatever one he happens to be doing. The only thing that it doesn't interrupt is his fencing defendo move that reflects pretty much everything. That's one other thing to watch out for actually. When he's doing his fencing move, make sure that you don't do your slasher's dash back and forth move. If you do and you hit him while he's doing his reflecting move, will be stunned and caught on the one spot, and then will be pummeled by barrels, and it's something to be cautious of. I only throw in the dash move as a little bit of extra damage just to shave a little bit of time off the fight. The spells will do it in the end if you're not comfortable with the timing there. But yeah, if you are going to dash with your slashes, just be careful of the timing. Okay, so we are actually getting close to the end of the video now. I realise there's been a lot to this video. I think I've covered all the cheese that you're ever likely to use. If there's something that you particularly want to see though, if there's a fight that you can't do even with this technique, if there's something of that nature, feel free to let me know in the comments. I'm happy to do a little additional V-Rising video. I really do like this game, and I'm happy to share my tips and tricks for how I get through with people out there. After the Baron here, we do have one more encounter. It's going to be a quick one though. So in order to build the amulet which the Baron allows us to unlock, we still need an artisan table in order to be able to build it. And that's unlocked by Leandra, who I find a really quite painful fight. It's going to be a bit of a joke though when we do it, because we're going to be so many levels over the top of her gear-wise. So that'll be the fight that we end on, and then I'll wind up the video. I will start fast forwarding the Baron here after we see barrels from the other two directions. The barrels from the back of the room seems to be quite a rare one. I actually did this fight multiple times in order to get a video of them coming from the back of the room. They come from the front of the room after the 50% mark fairly often. In fact, here they come here from that side of the room, and so here's our third hiding spot. But the fourth hiding spot seems to be less frequently needed. It's more of a surprise. You get used to the 3 hiding spots, and then it's like, hang on, barrel's coming from the 4th direction. I actually find when they're coming from this direction though, that we get a lot more spells in. Okay, I just hit my lightning ball on a terrain object. That's just annoying, but you can see that the Baron really has trouble getting anything off at all, so we can really start pummeling the spells, and yeah, things start speeding up now. Also, we get our health orbs from his 50% mark at this stage, which if we weren't already on 100% health, we should be now. Okay, back to side barrels. You know the drill. I should also mention that the materials that you need for the Blood Merlot amulet, which this guy unlocks, I'm not going to cover how to get them. I think I've covered how to get all the materials in the game now. If there's anything you need, like radium alloys or anything like that, you should be all good for resources now though, if you've been following along with this video and playing along at home. Really, once you've got human form unlocked from Bane and you know about how to farm Brighthaven City, then it's a piece of cake for most endgame materials. For those wondering what to do next, if you've got to this point and you're like, should I go back and do all the bosses that I've bypassed? Should I keep on pushing forward? My suggestion would be, after this, the next boss would be the Doctor for the Athenaeum, so that we can spend all those tier 3 books and schematics that we've got from farming Brighthaven. I would also do Matka the Curse Weaver, so that combined you can then upgrade your weapons, your armor, and your amulets, and take yourself to the next level. And then the boss I would do after that, actually, I would go hunt down Styx and get yourself bat form. Because, well, bat form is the best form of movement in the game by quite a long way, and while everyone else is running around at this stage trying to find themselves the perfect horse, you can just be flying overhead, getting from A to B whenever you need to. I also don't really like the horses in this game, but that's a personal preference thing based on the way they move. It doesn't click with me, hence wanting to get to bat form as fast as possible. Okay, so here are the barrels coming from the 4th direction anyway, so I will speed it up now that you've seen that. I took a bit more damage there than I would have liked, but it's nothing we can't heal through. And as you could see, even though it looked close, the barrels were still exploding before they hit us. So as long as you know where the safe point is, I probably took more damage there because I'm not actually used to that spot. Again, that fourth direction for the barrels to come from does seem quite rare. You only see it once in every couple of Baron fights. From my experience, maybe I've just got a strange data set to work from. Can never really be sure about that sort of thing, I guess. So I was talking about what to do after all this. You've got your gear, you've got bat form. Really the only thing left to do is just work your way through the bosses and maybe go collect soul shards before anyone else. You'll of course have to build a proper castle to defend them if you're going to be collecting soul shards, because if you're on a server with a bunch of other people, then yeah, your castle will be raided quite a lot if you're sitting there on all the soul shards by the time they actually start unlocking the ability to track them down. Personally, I like just doing the Ruins of Mordium event, unlocking all the powers at the Altar of Stygian Awakening, tidying up my castle, collecting the perfect set of bodyguards. I mean, you can spend a lot of time in this game just fine-tuning exactly the way your things look, even doing things like windows in your castle and carpets and all that sort of stuff. You can spend hours, but I'm not going to tell you how to spend your time in endgame in V-Rising. That is left open-ended, just like a lot of the other games that I like, actually. If you've watched any of my other Project Zomboid videos or anything like that, I actually quite like the games without endgame, but I do realise that's not for everyone. Anyway, I'm just waffling on here. The Baron looks like he's on his last legs. A quick ultimate should finish him off and we'll slow the video down again. Hopefully after watching this you're now completely comfortable with this fight. If you've got any questions, do feel free to ask, but as you can see, I was hardly an expert at that fight. I took damage almost continuously. I don't even know how many barrels I copped to the face, and I still came out fairly much unscathed in the scheme of things. I would actually argue that difficulty for the level that you encounter a boss, the Baron is actually the easiest in the game. Okay, so as mentioned, there's Liandra left just to unlock our artisan table. Just for anyone that might be curious, she is 14 gear levels lower than us, so I'm just going to pummel her with an ultimate and all my moves at the start just to see what sort of damage it does. So a third of her life gone right at the start. Of course, if I was taking this fight seriously, I wouldn't have done that. I would have saved my ultimate for after she hits the halfway mark, because she is quite an annoying fight, but this will probably give you an idea of just how much damage we can soak by being just 14 levels above, let alone going back to the early game bosses like, I don't know, Rufus or someone who they might actually explode in one hit from our ultimate now. I do always forget just how annoying this boss is. She's mobile, she blinds you. I mean, I know she's annoying. That's one of the reasons that I bypass her for so long and only come back when I absolutely need to kill her. But yeah, certainly don't take this part of the video as a how-to for how to pummel your way through it. It is another good showcase, though, actually, of why Veil of Chaos is such a good movement skill. When she blinds us, we can take one dash, take a little bit of a pause, then take another dash, and it's actually quite a large stretch of time where we're not invulnerable, but mobile enough that we won't be being hit by whatever it is that the boss mechanic is throwing at us at the time. Combined with camouflage, we can go almost an entire blindness session from Liandra without having to actually worry too much. I mean, again, we are way over leveled and that's helping too, but just as a bit of a showcase for how the movement skill and the slashes synergize, in my mind. Okay, so I've now got everything to build our Blood Merlot amulet, so back to base and churn one out. Quite the large upgrade, considering our last piece of jewellery was from Gorswine the Ravager, which was only the second or third boss that we actually even took on. And that brings us back to where we were at the start of the video. So having a look at the bosses that we've fought so far, if you've been following along, your tracking screen should look something similar to mine. There might be a couple of differences depending on if you bypassed Errol or Elena or someone like that. And yeah, hopefully this video has been at least somewhat useful to you. If you've got any questions, do feel free to leave them in the comments and I promise to get back to you before too long. And otherwise, yeah, good luck with your own journeys attempting to become the apex predator, and maybe I'll see you around the world of Vardaran sometime. See ya.